the biggest asset we all have is usually our people. It's even more challenging now because the rapid pace of innovation out in the marketplace and the change that AI has placed on everyone with new skills and people worrying honestly about whether their job is still going to be the same because AI is coming in. So you've really got to focus on your talent footprint and say, where do we need to be over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years?
Welcome to Technovation. I'm your host, Peter High. My guest today is Richard Jardim. Richard is the Executive Vice President and Chief Information Officer of the Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, or CIBC, a role he's had for 5 of his 14 years with the company. CIBC is a financial services company based in Toronto that earned in excess of 26.5 billion Canadian dollars in revenue in 2024. As CIO, Richard leads a global team responsible for delivering high quality, innovative, and operationally resilient technology solutions that contribute to building a relationship oriented bank for a modern world. He and his team also focus on driving technology agility, speed, and simplicity across CIBC technology platforms. I look forward to learning more about the work his team is doing through this conversation. Richard, welcome to Technovation. It's great to speak with you today.
Yeah, great to join you today. And I love the name, Technovation, and very much looking forward to giving a little bit of light on how we operate for our clients at CIBC and some of the exciting things we're doing.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing all of that. And why don't we begin, Richard, with an overview of CIBC's business, if you would. Talk a bit more about it for a moment.
Yeah, you did a good little summary of CIBC, but it's more than just numbers. So we are a large Canadian bank, and we're also a full North American bank. And we have a global footprint too. So we operate in UK, Europe, and Asia as well. But North America is our primary focus. And just to give you a perspective, so we're over 500 billion in assets, and we've made a large investment in the US as well. So we have a normal retail banking footprint in Canada, a big banking center footprint. We have a large corporate banking and commercial banking business in Canada as well. And we operate in a very competitive environment around capital markets as well, where we have one of the leading franchises in Canada as well. Crossing into the US, we invested heavily in our acquisitions in the US. So in the wealth management space, especially the high net worth private wealth space and commercial banking space through our Bank USA, which is centered in Chicago. And we also have a thriving capital markets business through our New York branch legal entity as well. So we offer the full service in the US along those businesses. And we have some innovation banking footprints growing as well with a new San Francisco office and West Palm Beach office we opened up recently. So we're very much involved in the US, and we do a lot of north-south connectivity for our clients. So we have a lot of clients that operate in both the US and Canada. So we try and offer those sort of full service end to end if we can. And then we also have a CIBC Caribbean franchise as well. It's been a separate entity for many years. Now it's within the full CIBC fold, and we operate in a multitude of Caribbean countries, mostly focused on retail banking, especially in the digital space.
Great overview. And would you mind, Richard, taking a moment and talking about your purview as Chief Information Officer? What's within your span of responsibilities?
Yeah, so the role is focused on a few different things. So one is I think of it as sort of vertical and horizontal. So I think of the traditional sort of X. So have accountability for our global technology and innovation teams and capability. So that covers all the different facets of technology. And when we say innovation, we do have an innovation team, but it's also about how do we enable the businesses across CIBC and ultimately our clients to leverage some of the innovative capabilities out there. And if you think about AI now, that's an obvious one. We have things like quantum coming along. And we were also one of the first adopters of having a mobile app, banking app that is in Canada. We partnered with Apple many years ago through our lab environment and rolled out the first mobile banking app. So we always think of ourselves as being quite innovative from a bank perspective. And we try and pass that on to our client experience. So my accountabilities are very much bringing that whole capability to the businesses and our clients from a technology perspective. And horizontal things like that aren't business specific, like migrating to the cloud. We've been doing that for a few years now. We're very mature on that. Bringing some of the latest automation capabilities into the fold with respect to, especially with AI now, all those tools and capabilities, all the way through to making sure that we build services at the bank that can be reused across different businesses. And then some of the framework around our digital capability. So we have award-winning platforms in Canada on online and mobile banking, and we've built them ourselves, so they're proprietary, and that way we have control of the tech. So those are sort of some of the things from a horizontal perspective that I'm accountable for. And a nice thing now is recently in the US, where we have not invested as much in our let's call it our mobile banking and online banking capability, especially for our commercial clients and crossing into wealth. We're actually leveraging some of the capability in Canada south with that same framework, but extending it to the US. So that's sort of my horizontal accountability. And then vertically, I have CIOs under me that face off with each of the key businesses. So I have, a commercial banking and payments CIO. I have one for our retail banking franchise. We have a digital banking Canada too called Simply Financial. I have a CIO for cap markets. I have a CIO for wealth management. So very traditional. Having that CIO for each of the vertical business lines makes sure that we're very, very integrated in with the business on our priorities and making sure that we never do tech for the sake of tech. So I come from the business originally. My background, I spent many years on the business side before I moved over to technology. And so I have a particular passion for making sure that tech is really about giving business value and ultimately client experience. If it's not doing that, then we have to question why we're investing in technology. So those are some of the verticals and horizontals that I think about. And then you can throw in there things that we build that are for one business, but over time we can actually extend that over to other businesses. So we're always thinking about that bigger picture.
And given that business orientation that comes naturally to you, given your background, Richard, I wanted to ask you that the company prides itself on building a relationship oriented bank for a modern world. Talk a little bit about what you see as the tech or digital implications of that, if you would.
Yeah, a little bit about the X I talked about, right? So when you think about our clients are our number one passion at our bank, and they always should be. So we think of everything from a client perspective, and that experience we want to give our clients, especially now with the growth of expectations around digital capability and ease of doing banking. We really focus on that. So we want to make our clients' ambitions a reality. We want to make sure that they can fulfill what they need from our bank through easy interactions and effective interactions with our technology and with our advisors and the front line that supports them. And then modern world, again, the world is changing rapidly around us. And so if you think about it from a client perspective, people sort of think that they and expect that they have tech in their hands, similar to what they would have on their iPhone or their, Apple device, whatever they may use, Android device. And so, we're trying to translate the rapid pace of technology and innovation out there into what the clients have at their fingertips. So when we say modern world, it's everything from putting modern platforms into the bank to make sure they're scalable and stable, that they have rich functionality that serves our clients, all the way to making sure that we have security around all those applications. So our investment in cyber and security and all that is paramount. So think about it as making sure that modern world around us is changing is how we think of our investments, always being part of that vision for our clients. And then our clients' ambitions in the end is why we exist. So that's why we have that sort of slogan in there. Let's call it mission statement.
And a worthy mission statement to be sure. Thank you so much for those descriptions. And I know from our past conversations, Richard, that your team is focused on, and I mentioned this before, driving technology agility, speed, and simplicity. Talk a bit about each of those factors, perhaps the interplay between them, but also what it is that you and your team are doing to foster those activities.
Yeah, I mean, I think start a bit with simplicity because in the end, a lot of things roll from there. So I always say if things are complex to begin with and you don't make them simple, then you're trying to always put processes and jam technology in on a already overly complex process. So you got to kind of step back and simplify first. And sometimes those newer capabilities allow you to do that. So I give you some examples of simplifying. So for example, we've looked at our application footprint across the bank. So we have around and take any count business management technology in there as well, but call it 1,200 applications, probably around 50 to 60 what we call like the really big honking tier one critical apps, but call it 11 to 1,200 applications. So we've actually mapped those out the last few years to look at, are they buy, sell, hold? So we're going to look to decommission them and get rid of them because they're old technology. We're going to look to upgrade them or replace them, or are they on hold where we think we may need some upgrade to it, but we're just looking at what else is out there because there may not be a competitive market for things that could replace that product. So we have that full map. And then we actually work with the businesses to look at where does it make sense to collapse capability into one target application and one target capability. That could be a SaaS offering out in the marketplace. It could be working with a single specific vendor to build some capability for us, or it could be us taking control of the build ourselves and having a proprietary platform. So we look at that whole footprint and we look at it strategically. We try and simplify that box into something that's not duplicating technology around the bank, that is modern for the right reasons. And also, if we have a competitive advantage that we believe that we want to maintain, maybe building and keeping control of the IP ourselves makes sense. So that whole simplicity bit is really about making sure that we get that box into the right little square. And then within that all the plumbing is simplified as well. So we don't want to have all these point-to-point systems connecting all over the place, spaghetti, which most organizations have in some fashion, but get that spaghetti to be less spaghetti. So you have services reuse, you have single messaging layers that help to transport data between applications. So all the sort of the traditional things you would expect, just getting that box to be simpler and simpler, because our businesses in many ways are getting more complex with respect to the array of products that people expect and variations. So that's really important. And then once you actually have a good roadmap around how do you simplify that box, then you want to start looking at how do I make sure that I implement platforms for our businesses and our clients that allow us to deliver things quicker. So I'll give you an example. Our online banking platform in Canada is a proprietary platform. Doesn't mean we don't have vendor and external components in there, but it's controlled by us. A lot of it is our own build. So we migrated our platform onto the cloud 2 or 3 years ago from more traditional on-prem hardware infrastructure. And what that did is allow us to scale the volumes much quicker on our platform, because we also did an acquisition in Canada for the Costco business. And so we have all those additional clients on our platform. And so what we did is we're implementing and migrating to the cloud on our online banking platform. It allowed us to actually do a lot more releases. So we can actually put more change into the platform in shorter cycles. And in the end, that gives our clients nicer features quicker. We can react quicker to what our clients want. And also we can make sure that feeling the client has that we're listening and we're actually adapting the platform is there. So that ability for speed and agility was really predicated on us thinking about the footprint and then looking at, what kind of infrastructure, for example, should we run on, and we moved it to cloud. So that combination, especially around speed and agility and simplicity, is something that's always in our minds. And now with AI, what we're seeing is, and again, a lot of hype versus reality still, especially with agentic AI now, for example, but actually looking at, how can we leverage AI in a smart way to be able to increase our speed and agility even more? And can we simplify quicker by doing some of the code migration work that AI and these large language models allow you to do, so we can actually move quicker to newer technology. So there's a lot of things packed into this concept of speed, agility, and simplicity. But I would always argue that if you don't start with simplifying first, it's hard to get all the other benefits that you would like, and your overhead keeps going up.
Well articulated. Thank you for that, Richard. You also, I know from past conversations, especially in light of some of the changes that you're describing, new ways of working, new technologies employed, you're focused on also very importantly on building the skill sets of tomorrow and thinking about skill sets that will ultimately aid the development of intellectual property, the sanctity of deeper engineering skills that are necessary, even extending to the necessity for great change management. All of these come back to great people with great skills who are continuing to build skill sets reflective of where business is going, not where it's been. Talk a bit about your philosophy there and some of what you're employing to breathe life into that philosophy.
And honestly, the biggest asset we all have is usually our people. So for CIBC, it's no different. Our talent and our people make the bank. And we have an incredible culture at CIBC. We're known for that amazing culture that we have, very diverse culture as well. We try and reflect what our clients look like as well. So we're very much focused on our people. And what I would say is it's even more challenging now because the rapid pace of innovation out in the marketplace and the change that AI has placed on everyone with new skills, and people worrying honestly about whether their job is still going to be the same because AI is coming in. So you've really got to focus on your talent footprint and say, which is hard, where do we need to be over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years? And the path may go like this because you never predict things exactly, but trying to anticipate what are the skills and capabilities that our talent needs to have to be able to become what we hope is continually the best bank for our clients, and better than our competitors. So I think that we start a bit with that strategic roadmap. So we've actually started to look at having these strategic workforce plans, SWPs, built out for the next 5 years. It's work in progress. It's a new muscle for us because we tend to look, 2 to 3 years. So really looking out 5 years and thinking about what do we need to have in place in 5 years. And so what we did is we looked more at themes. So in technology, for example, we believe in our shop we need more IP. So we have amazing third parties that help us deliver our strategy, but we want to rely more on ourselves and more on our employees and our full-time IP to be able to deliver that technology experience. So we're actually looking at increasing that investment in internal IP over the next 5 years, and being very much more targeted with our third parties that we use to help us deliver our technology. Especially with the pace of transformation automation, we believe we have to take control of that ourselves rather than try and have someone else do it for us. So that's number one. Number two is skill sets are changing. So we've already done this, which is have a heavy investment with AI for our people. So we just rolled out a enterprise-wide platform, which is our version of ChatGPT called Kai, which is CIBC branded. So it's really just using ChatGPT within our sort of control and firewalls. And we have different recipes we put on there. We've given this out to all our knowledge workers of the bank, right? So tens of thousands of people now have this tool. You have to take training to use it, to be able to get access to it. So we're kind of saying we're willing to invest in training, showing people how to even prompt properly, et cetera, before they can go and leverage these tools. But we're saying use these tools to make your day-to-day things more productive, right? So there's all different recipes on there that people have access to. So that's a new muscle for people. And I think we're showing to people willing to invest in our own platform here that you can use to make your life a little bit easier on those Monday tasks you do each day. And also we're investing in the learning, and so that everyone learns how to prompt properly and they learn some of these new concepts around what AI capability is. And we have all sorts of other programs that would put people the last few years through getting the cloud certifications. Even if you're not a cloud engineer, you can still get your certificate with respect to Azure and cloud knowledge and capability, et cetera, et cetera. So really looking at that training roadmap for people over the next few years as the jobs change and morph, is making sure that we make people feel like we're investing in those new skills and capabilities and that we can actually give you those tools to use. All our developers now have GitHub Copilots at their fingertips for helping them to code. And then leadership, you mentioned, is another huge focus for us. So from our junior leaders and managers all the way up to myself and above at the Exco table, is making sure that we teach people some of that change management muscle. So change is happening dynamically everywhere around us, and it's stressful. We don't always have the answers. As senior folks, we're trying to make sure people see us as being human and real because we're also learning. But we do have to also make sure that we all have that muscle to be able to operate safely within our environment to be able to drive change and to take advantage of change. And so some of those muscles, we're investing in new leadership programs at the bank to make sure that we make people feel like the scary environment around us that has so much change is also an amazing opportunity for people to grow and to get those skill sets. So really thinking about talent from this 5-year horizon and then all those little things along the way that help people navigate this dynamic environment is really helping. And we have lots of other programs at the bank in different groups with respect to specific skills and training. But I think investing in your IP and your people in the right way is everything these days. Otherwise, you're going to get left behind.
And really fascinating to hear about that, Richard. And naturally different than perhaps the beginning of yours or my career, where perhaps someone with a strong skill set would anticipate using it, perhaps without a lot of necessity to change for a good number of years, the pace of change now is such that that assumption no longer holds. And I wonder, as you think about the recruiting aspect, we're talking an awful lot about, of course, the great training and upskilling you're doing of existing staff. As you think about welcoming new people into the fold at CIBC, is there a different set of factors you're looking for the ideal employee, independent of skills themselves, but an orientation of sorts that would suggest that they are well equipped to change in the way across time that you've described?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question you asked because I would say the subtle way, yes. I don't think it's a big overnight. You're like, oh, we've got to find people that think a certain way. Skills aside, if you're looking for a deep engineer or a developer, like there's certain skills, table stakes you need to have, and what education do they have, and work experience, maybe if they've had summer jobs, et cetera, et cetera. I actually think in this day of AI, we've talked about this a lot with our human resource leadership and strategic team is curiosity. So it's interesting when you put some of these tools in the hands of different people. There's people that are scared or they don't want to, um, they don't want to use these tools. A little bit of fear of the new, fear of what it may mean for their job. But what we notice is that the young people that we hire, they're naturally curious. They're naturally much more comfortable with tech in hand. And then you have some of the more mature folks in our organization that love new things. They've had the same for a long time. They're like, wow, this is, and they've got so much experience. They can use some of these newer tools and capabilities, and actually they can human in the loop look at it and go, that makes sense. No, it doesn't make sense. But there's this middle group where the experience isn't quite there. They're a bit more apprehensive. Maybe some of them aren't as naturally curious because they've been used to just doing things a certain way. So I think trying to engage that, middle layer as we hire people is to focus on people that have that naturally curious mind. And also communication skills will surprisingly become even more important. I think there was a time when people thought with all the technology happening over the last 10, 15 years, communication skills sort of go out the window a bit and just have people that everything's done sort of call it digitally. But I think that what we're finding is that the skill sets that we focus on even more now, apart from the deeper technical skills, is that curious mindset, be more comfortable with change, which a lot of the younger generation have gone through a lot of change. And then thirdly is that ability to communicate in a way which means can you influence, can you take ambiguous situations and make sense out of it and communicate back what you expect or how you need to navigate it. So I think even looking at mixed backgrounds of people where they may also have some different types of background that bring a different perspective in ability to communicate and influence and have that curiosity to learn. So I do think it's slowly changing, and we're starting to realize that some of those skills are even more important. Another big one I see is business and tech. The lines have already been blurred, and they're almost completely getting intertwined. So either changing some of the muscles people have already to sort of understand the business and product more, and business and product people understand the tech more, which AI is that bridge for that in many ways. But also making sure that as new recruits come in, that we right away start to make sure they really get exposure to the business if they're technologists and vice versa. So you build people that have those mixed skills, because as AI becomes more prevalent, those really valuable people would be the people that can leverage the different tools, have that mixed business and tech background that can actually optimize how we deploy. And a lot of those people are often the young crowd that are more open to melding these things together. So those are some of the things that we're seeing. Now the trick is how do you, in a very methodical way, start to introduce that into that talent footprint that we have and that we will need to have. So it's pretty fascinating to see the change bit by bit. And even I see my own skill set having to change as well, just in my ability to lead with a bit more ambiguity and a bit more of the unknown. So it's I find it exciting, but it's you gotta also remind yourself that we don't have all the answers. So you need to kind of show that you're willing and able to figure things out along the way.
And do you make it accessible and known to the rest of the team that you're going through this to say that look, the change impacts all of us, including including a member of the Exco, the head of technology? Is that something you talk about
I
openly
think
about your own
so.
need to change?
I think so. We probably have to do more of it, to be honest, because things have, even the last 6 months, it feels like, no one even knew what agentic AI was 6 to 12 months ago. And that's a new thing. What is it? And so I do think that any town hall we have, any forum we have the ability to interact with our employees and say, hey, let's all recognize the environment is changing rapidly. Let's all recognize we don't have all the answers. Let's recognize that we need to learn new things and we're going to hit probably more bumps, but we've got you because we're learning too. And we recognize that we have to be a full team here. And trial and error is more of a thing these days too. Sometimes along the way, you're going to have to try new things. And but where we have to help from a leadership point of view a lot is separate the hype from the reality. People get caught up in the hype and then they go down the wrong path. So it's really trying to pick out what's reality here versus hype and really have people focus on that. So, but I think we have to do even more of that is just give confidence that we have a roadmap and a vision, and we do at CIBC, but also within that we're going to following a little bit of a path that could zigzag a bit, and that's okay as long as we're going forward and we have that mission statement always at the front of how we think of our client.
Yeah, well said. Let me ask you this. We've certainly talked about a number of really important trends, Richard. Others that come to mind, you briefly mentioned quantum, for instance. Maybe that's one to double click on in terms of what you anticipate that how that might impact a business like yours.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, AI itself. We'll talk about quantum in a second. AI itself has so many parts to it, and then if you can't separate AI from data, right? So AI is not that meaningful, like any kind of analytic, for example, if the data isn't good and you don't understand your data or you're not leveraging the right type of data. So I think data and AI coming together. I think all the different advanced tools and capabilities around AI and data, while they're not emerging, there's new parts within that circle that come out as new, like agentic AI. So I think that's one category that we see as continually emerging. I think there's still augmented and virtual reality that had a big sort of had some momentum sort of 2-3 years ago where we were experimenting a bit with augmented and virtual reality as to could we create these virtual branches where you could have a client sort of interact and go through this sort of virtual world where they can go in and they can actually tap on things and learn about CIBC or actually engage and purchase different banking products from us. So there's been that. I think augmented and virtual reality and the next generation of that is going to come back into being something that banking will look to leverage a little bit more. I think quantum is interesting because it's really scary in that the ability to break encryption and to have increased cyber attacks, let's call it, on financial institutions in our case around quantum has that negative side where you could end up having a lot more of the bad players out there leveraging quantum capability to de-encrypt a lot of our safe framework around the bank. On the flip side, we see quantum as being a huge opportunity for us to leverage that type of capability to look at things like portfolio optimization, things like introducing much more powerful and capable AI platforms running on quantum, where we could actually do faster real-time personalization of the banking experience for our clients. So there's quantum sitting there that is, you could argue it's 10 years away, 15 years away. Everyone's sort of, 10 to 20 years away, but that comes pretty fast. And so you need to think about learning about what do we care about from a emerging technology point of view that's good and bad, and how can we do experimentation and POCs leading up to that until it becomes real? How can we make sure that we think about, from a regulatory point of view, what do we need to do ahead of time? What products should we be purchasing from some of our suppliers that may have quantum safe computing built in? So you have to sort of take those things. But I think really the extension of AI and data and all the newness around some of those emerging capabilities, I think augmented and virtual reality is going to have more and more place in a lot of retail and banking environment. And then I think quantum is just something that's a bit binary. When it happens, it's going to change the world. Potentially like nothing we've ever seen. So that's kind of what we're focused on. I think everything else is a little bit in between, which is how do we become more innovative by putting different pieces together where we can augment the client experience in ways that's a little bit different than some of our competitors. And to be honest, most of that revolves around knowing your data better than others, being able to monetize that quicker through smart analytics and make the client feel like they actually have almost a personalized real-time banking experience where as I interact with, say, CIBC, it'll start to tell me how I should be optimizing everything from my investments to my day-to-day banking to things I haven't thought about because I have some money sitting there that should be here, like all those type of things. I think we're a little away from that because the regulatory environment rightfully is saying, whoa, start to touch client data with AI, you've got to be careful about where that could go wrong. So there's more work to do there, but we're trying to anticipate where that's going to go and trying to invest bit by bit by bit towards where we'll probably end up.
Yeah, very interesting. Thank you for that, and fascinating to hear about the way in which you think about innovation and testing these ideas, but doing so responsibly in anticipation of what might be coming in the not too distant future. I wanted to also ask you anything you've recently read, watched, and/or listened to that you would recommend to others. Clearly, you have a orientation towards looking to the future, and I wonder, how you fill your cup, so to say, intellectually.
Well, I mean, in my day-to-day job, I get overwhelmed often with just the amount of articles that I try and stay on top of, and a few publications that I read religiously, and news articles I read every day. So if I park that a little bit, because there's just some normal things that a lot of us probably read similar things each day. I'm actually fascinated by call it human achievement and human stress, and so I've been a big fan of exploration books going back in time. And the reason I focus on them is so that, there's a lot of different books that I've read, but there's one I'm reading now called Erebus, which is actually written by Michael Palin, the ex-Monty Python comedian that did a lot of those big travel shows around the world for years as documentaries, which were amazing. But he wrote a book called Erebus. It's actually based on a true story about a whaling ship from 150 years ago. And it was reused to do exploration. And to me, it's just, when you look back in time about what humans achieved through extreme stress and extreme unknown, and being able to be super resourceful and be able to do unimaginable things with no technology back then. You go, how did they possibly navigate here and do this? And it actually is kind of mind-boggling. So I find that really fascinating, and it's very de-stressing for me because it's a completely different world when I read those type of books. And also, it sort of makes me think about, well, I've got nothing to complain about back then, what people did compared to now with what we're facing in many ways, even though we have a changing world. We have changes now that are we're all able to take advantage of in many ways. So I think, sort of learning a bit about how people face these crazy challenges and somehow got through them, sort of translating a bit into how can I learn from that and think about the way to lead today. So I find that to me is kind of publications and books I find fascinating. There's another one, Edward Shackleton's famous trip through the Arctic and his getting the ship stuck in the ice, and 3 years later, a few of them that survived managed to literally row a boat to a remote island and get rescued. So I find those things very, very fascinating, and I also find I find it's also very helpful to have a global perspective. So I do get stuck sometimes reading a lot of publications that are just very sort of Western focused, and I find sometimes if you read some things you may not always agree with, that are from different parts of the world. I've read Al Jazeera, some of their news lines and services, and I just find it getting different perspectives allows you to sometimes, you don't have to agree with it, but it gives you some different ways to think about things culturally and from a diversity point of view. So I find I do more of that, but my challenge is just my time is busy. So I try and be efficient with what I read, but it gives you a little taste anyway of what I'm interested in as far as the type of books and publications outside work.
I like that. I also like
Mhm.
that, the troubles that a Shackleton faced will make your troubles look a little bit less daunting, perhaps.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
Well,
Yeah.
Richard, thank you so much for a terrific conversation. Wonderful to learn more about the practices you and your team are implementing in an organization of consequence like CIBC. Thank you so much for sharing here, and it's been great to speak with you.
Yeah, and thanks a lot. I appreciate having me on and sharing a bit of my journey and what we're doing. And congratulations on your success too and your podcast and sharing a lot of different perspectives. I think it's a great thing you do.